Hello and welcome once again to the Onion Creature Book Club. Today's piece of literature that we will be discussing is Ask Iwata. Ask Iwata was released in April of this year, and it's basically a compilation of articles and Iwata Asks segments by Satoru Iwata, the former Nintendo president. The book was edited by Hobonichi, which is Shigesato Itoi's company, and translated by Sam Bett. I really deeply enjoyed this book. It appealed to me as someone who has a great deal of respect for Satoru Iwata and his work, and I think what I really liked about reading this is that it gave me more insight into some of his philosophies and his managerial style. I'd say the biggest takeaway from the book for me was just how focused he was on communication, whether that be with Shigeru Miyamoto, Shigesato Itoi, or the employees at HAL Laboratory and Nintendo. That seemed to be something that was very important to him. He obviously pushed for the Nintendo Direct presentations, in which he very often appeared and would deliver new announcements to fans. Of course, he had the Iwata Ask segments, which I really love, where he would interview various developers of Nintendo games and get their insights on the project. I always loved reading those. I think they were so interesting and insightful. And so this book doesn't have a lot of really specific information on different projects he developed. It's more just personal anecdotes and just experiences that Satoru Iwata found worth writing about. The structure of the book works very well. It's divided into chapters, each of which is focused on a sort of general topic, like Iwata's background in game development and how he first started that with a calculator and then moved on to making full games. And then at the end of each chapter, there's some words of wisdom. Just has some sort of life advice and perspectives from Iwata. It's very nice to see his perspective on so many different aspects of life. So most of the book is dedicated to these different chapters, which Iwata wrote himself. A lot of this was very enlightening to me because it's something you did get a glimpse of in the Iwata Asks and the Nintendo Directs and all those other things that you see as a fan of the company. Getting to read about it on a more deep and personal level was very interesting, and it sheds additional light on why he did what he did when he was president. The latter sections of the book have a chapter written by Shigeru Miyamoto and another one by Shigesato Itoi. And both of these offer their perspectives on their friendship with Iwata. And I think it's very moving to read these and see what an impact he had on their lives. These are people who I hold a lot of respect for. I think they're creative visionaries. It was something I really enjoyed reading about. Shigesato Itoi, in his section, wrote a bit about Iwata's personal life. Iwata didn't really share much about his personal life as president of Nintendo, which makes sense. It was really enlightening to get more of a glimpse of what he was like just as a person. Understanding that makes me appreciate him as a company president even more than I did already. His death was something that had a great impact on me. I think he really is an irreplaceable individual, and I think there's a lot to learn from his philosophies and his way of thinking. Unfortunately, much of that is preserved in this book. I just think it offers a really interesting and wonderful perspective on someone who I hold a great deal of respect for. So yeah, needless to say, I highly recommend picking up this book. I think that if you are familiar with Satoru Iwata and the work he's done in the games industry, it offers a more clear understanding for who he was as a person. And I think even if you are not at all familiar with Satoru Iwata and were to read this book, I think it would still be very valuable as an experience because there is a lot of great advice and interesting anecdotes in there about Iwata's experiences as a game developer and as a company president. I'm really very glad that this book was translated into English. Its original release was in Japanese, and so I think it's really great that even more people like myself are able to read it now. I definitely recommend picking it up. It's a great book. Thank you for joining me on this discussion of Ask Iwata. Great book, as I've stated, and I thoroughly enjoyed reading it, and as such, recommend it.